Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and a good evening to everyone.
Hi, good evening, Prof.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah. Good evening, Prof.
Good evening. How's everyone doing?
Alhamdulillah, so far so good.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Yeah, we're getting close to the end of the semester. So technically, yes, this is week 14, but we do still have another class next week, as you all know. So, as we know, the graduate school has graciously extended your semester by 1 week. So we have till week 15 to get those assignments in, right? So I will go over that in a second. Let's see, what time is it? It's just after 6. We've got 23. I guess we can start. So let's just bring up the which of last. It's not fine. Okay, so all right, so go ahead and please go ahead and sign the attendance for tonight, everyone. Yeah, I apologize about the final exam date issue. The faculty office actually sent me the wrong date. So we originally said to the 28th, and then they said no, it's 25th. So we had to go back and recalculate that date for the final. So I apologize. I hope Thursday, the 22nd, is okay with everyone. I'm sorry if it's not ideal. I know a lot of you wanted it on the weekend, but we just couldn't make it work. So we have to try to be fair to everyone, at least to make sure that people in different time zones are taking the exam at reasonable hours. So we don't have to ask them to take it at like 4 in the morning. That wouldn't really be fair. So, okay, so I hope that date works for everyone. But we still got time. So this is week 13 for us. So okay, so your assignment 5 code books are not due now for another 2 weeks. Okay, so they're due on the, I should have put the date up on the Blast. It will be the 13th of July. Okay, 13th of July. So please just make a note of that. I can go back and add it for next week's class. I can put it up here. But assignment 5 is now due on on 13th July. Is that what I said, 13th? Yeah, 13th July. Okay, so you have a little bit more time to finish up the code book. For those of you who have not done the course evaluation, I would just like to remind you again to do that, please, if you have not done so yet. We are reminded to remind you, okay, to do that when you get a chance, please. And so tonight's class, we will be talking about preparing your qualitative thesis. So the presenters will be sharing an article again by Dr. Glenn Bowen, who he authored the article on saturation, as you remember. And he's also written a very nice article on preparing a qualitative-based dissertation. And so some of the lessons that he learned in doing it. And so he shares 7 sort of reminders or key points that he took away from his experience in doing his qualitative thesis. And he's sharing those with us. So our presenters tonight will be sharing those. And then after the reading presentation, I'm going to actually share with you, if we have time, there's a couple of theses that I wanted to go through actually and do a group activity by looking at how these 2 theses write up their triangulation strategies. Okay, so I want to touch on the issue of rigor and trustworthiness along with triangulation in the context of an actual thesis. That was kind of the goal. All right. And so I've added those. If you scroll down in your Putra Blast, whoops, let's scroll up rather. Scroll up in your Putra Blast to the, oh, you know what? I'm in, hold on a second. I know, I was wondering why this is so, oops, sorry. Sign back in here. Okay, so course handouts, if you go to the course handouts folder. Okay, I've added all the way at the bottom. You see there's these two triangulation thesis examples. So there's two theses in here. And I'm using them specifically as examples on triangulation. One incorporates method and data triangulation, uses that as a core strategy. And the other incorporates theoretical saturation into the design. And so I was hoping if we had time that we could do a little activity with that, but we'll see how that goes. But first, what I want to do is, before that, I want to go over this glossary of terms on trustworthiness. All right, so this one we will be doing, inshallah, after the reading. I'm going to sort of walk you through this because I wanted to talk a little bit about trustworthiness before the semester concluded, and so I thought I would do that tonight by using this glossary. Okay, so it's a glossary of key terms related to the four main components of trustworthiness in qualitative research. Okay, so we'll discuss. We'll be looking at that after the break, right? And so I'll go through that with you, inshallah. Okay, but they're both here, so you can use these. You can download these yourself from Putra Blast. All right. Okay, so any questions or concerns before we begin?
Assalamualaikum.
Yes, Nazrul, how are you? Alaikum salam.
I am fine, sir. Also, you fine, sir?
Fine, alhamdulillah.
Oh, okay, sir. Our assignment 6 due date submission.
Sorry?
Assignment 6, sir. Assignment 6
Yeah,
submission due date.
Yeah, assignment 6 then will have to be due on the 22nd, the day of the final exam.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm sorry I can't give you more time for that, but because they require the grades to be submitted, it's either 10 days or 2 weeks after the final, so I need time to go through both your code books, your final exams, and your assignment 6. It's a lot of marking, so I need time to do that. So I have to require that the assignment 6 is due on the 22nd. Okay, so thank you for reminding me of that, Nazrul. So I will post those dates. I'll post the dates, all the dates, in under the week 14 Putra Blast folder. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Any other questions, concerns? Any issues with your code book, or your from last week's coding exercise? Anything else? Wow, everyone's so quiet tonight. 34 voices of silence.
No questions at the moment, Prof. That's why.
Nothing to share. No one wants to share anything. How is your qualitative reading going? Literature review. Anyone want to share? Anyone having any issues they'd like to share with the group? No problems you want help resolving?
Professor, you have another session tomorrow morning, right? 7 a.m.
7 a.m. No, I mean 7 a.m. maybe in Bangladeshi time.
Yeah,
Mal-
yes, this is Bangladeshi time.
Malaysian time, 9 o'clock. If it's 7 o'clock, I won't be very effective if it's 7 o'clock. Yeah, inshallah, it'll be a session on just a basic session on the sequential designs of mixed method research. Yeah, so for those that are interested in mixed method research, especially the sequential designs, I'll be giving a sort of overview on that tomorrow, inshallah.
You will recording that session?
I'm assuming they'll record it. Yeah, I don't know what they're planning on doing, but I'm assuming they will record it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, the faculty is also working on a mixed method course. We're going to start offering a mixed method course. Not sure exactly when, if it's going to be next semester or the following semester, but we will be offering a mixed method course, especially for PhD students, I think. So that'll be a new course coming, and then in addition to that, we're going to restructure the qualitative research course offering in the faculty. So we're going to move to a sort of level 1, 2, and 3 approach. So we're going to have the current DCE6920 course is going to be the basic qualitative research class for both PhD and master students. And that one will be required for qualitative research students. And then the DCE6903 will become a intermediate level course only for PhD students. And then this course will become a true advanced course, and it will only be available for students who have taken both DCE5920 and DCE6903, and you will have to have passed your comprehensive exam. So it'll be a course that is offered for students that are really preparing to go into the field. So that is the way the course was originally designed. It was really designed to be that, to be a course for students who are actually already in the field or about to go into the field, because the course is supposed to focus more on problem solving, particular issues, qualitative research, data collection, data analysis, interpretation, and those kind of things. But because of the way it's currently structured and the fact that a lot of students just take it to fulfill their requirements early on, so we have most of our students taking it in their first 2 or 3 semesters, so we can't really make it a real advanced level class. So we're going to try to really restructure our program in the coming semesters. So that won't really affect you guys. Although if you are later, if you want to retake the class, like sit in after you've gone into the field and so forth, you'll be welcome to do that. So okay, so that's that. Anything else? Nothing else. Wow. Okay, you guys must be really tired. Time to wrap up the semester. Okay. So who are our presenters tonight? Are the reading presenters here?
Yes, Wei Hong and I will be the presentators, but Wei Hong will be the first part.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let me stop sharing my screen. Okay, you guys can go ahead and share your screen. Wei Hong, go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, Prof. Because I can't connect my internet now suddenly.
Oh.
So maybe should wait a second.
Sure,
Sorry.
Sure. Do you want me to present your slides for you? I can present the slides for you.
Oh, okay. Maybe I can make Junjie help me.
Oh, okay.
I will use my mobile phone. Yeah, mobile phone has internet.
Oh yeah, that reminds me. I know, Junji, you emailed me about your study. I should have mentioned this early in the semester. Yeah, I know several of you have contacted me about potential membership for your thesis supervisory committees. Unfortunately, the UPM has initiated strict quotas now for supervision. So we
I will try my best to connect it now. Okay.
okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, so I know some of you have requested about supervision, and I'm actually not allowed to take any more students right now because I've already exceeded my quota. So there's really nothing I can do about that. So I apologize for those of you who have invited me to your committees. I appreciate it and I'm honored, but unfortunately I cannot do it at this time.
Okay. Maybe Junjie can share my PowerPoints. I will do it from my mobile phone. I will
Okay.
say something. Okay.
Sure. Okay, Junji, can you help out? Now
Sorry.
Junji has disappeared. So are you guys are both in China, I assume?
Yeah, maybe you mean I will find another one?
No, you are right now, currently you're in China. You're back in China right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in
And
China now.
Junji also.
Yeah.
Are you guys near each other in China? Or are
Wrong
you
with my
far away?
computer. Something wrong with my computer. Sorry.
Murphy's Law. Murphy's
It
Law.
suddenly
Whatever can go wrong, will
disconnected.
go wrong.
I don't know the reason. Okay.
It's
Okay,
gonna crash down.
do you need me to present your slides?
Wait a minute.
Oh, there he is.
So Wei Hong, you need my help, right?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I
Could you-
need to log in my WeChat. I have logged on my WeChat.
Okay.
So while these guys are getting their presentation going, Okay, so how's it looking, guys? Will you be able to present it? If not, I can help out. I can present on my computer if you want.
Oh,
Oh,
this
tomorrow
computer can't work now.
it's working now.
It's terrible. Hey, Junjie's computer can't work now. It's
Computer
terrible.
doesn't work. Yeah, don't you love that?
Yeah.
That's happened to me a lot of times. Just when you're about to make a presentation, your computer decides, well, you know what? I don't think I want to work right now. Tomorrow's session is on, I can just, while we're waiting, I just share the screen. It's on mixed method, sequential design. So the graduate studies office, the faculty, is putting on these sessions, intellectual discourse sessions for students. So a few weeks ago, we had one on mixed methods, parallel designs by Dr. Khazir. And so tomorrow I'll be presenting on mixed methods, sequential designs. So it'll probably be maybe hour and a half session, hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. Just a sort of primer introduction, and then of course question and answer and stuff like that. Okay, so it's not going to be won't be an all-day session or anything like that, just a short one. No, there's no, this course is not offered next semester. This course is offered every other semester. So this course alternates with the DCE6925 course, which is introduction. Well, it's currently introduction to qualitative research for PhD students. So that one will be offered next semester. And then this one will be offered again in 2 semesters. But like I said, we're planning on restructuring the courses. So I'm not sure when that will go into effect. Maybe, I don't know if it's gonna be next semester or the following semester, but so there may be some changes coming in terms of the course structure. So the courses like 6903, to take 6903 as an intermediate class, DCE5920 will be the prerequisite. And to take this class in the future, you will need to have to take, you'll have to have had to take 5920 and 6903. So you have to have 2 prerequisites to take this class in the future. All right. And hopefully, although iGYMS, the system is not very helpful for us because it doesn't block students that have not taken prerequisites. Hopefully we can get the graduate school to do that so that we don't have to keep harassing the students and, you know, because it's just an inconvenience when students join the class and then they find out, oh, it's a prerequisite, they can't register, and then they have to change their courses and everything. So it's a huge hassle for everyone. But if at the point of registration, if you're trying to register and you find out, oh, I can't register because there's a prerequisite, then you know, and you know, it saves everybody time and headache. So hopefully they'll be able to do that.
Hello, Wei Hong. Excuse me, Wei Hong.
Oh, yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
brother. Yes, brother.
Song said that he can help us. I have sent your PPT to Mr. Song.
Okay, I'm trying to share the slides to the classmates, okay?
Okay,
I'm
thank
Just
you.
got a
trying to
third
share.
party involved.
Okay.
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 Thank you. Wow,
So-
my internet computer is not so good tonight.
Song,
My
I'll
God.
give you extra points for being the presenter.
Thanks. Okay, thanks, Prof. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Just go ahead and
Okay.
maximize the screen. Yeah, there you go. All right. Better late than never.
Okay.
No problem. This is the age of technological breakdown. Okay.
Okay. Good evening. Good evening, Prof. and my friends. Sorry about my internet. Okay. Today, I and my partner Junjie will do the presentation about the week's 13. The article's name is Preparing a Qualitative Research Based Dissertation Lessons Learned. And this article is not difficult to be understood, but I think it could give us some useful tips for writing the dissertation. Okay, now I will just briefly introduce this article. In this article, a newly minted PhD shares 7 lessons learned during the process of preparing a dissertation based on qualitative research methods. While most of lessons may be applicable to any kind of research, the writer focuses on the special challenges of exploring a qualitative methodology. In my presentation, there are 7 parts. Firstly is introductions. This part, the writer introduce his experience, such as the learning experience, his background, and so on. And the second part is exploratory research. In this part, the author gives us his experience, his experience about doing research, exploratory research. The last part is 7 lessons sharing. In this part, it will be divided into 2 parts. The first part is from lesson 1 and lesson 2, which will be presented by me, and from lesson 3 to lesson 7, they are presented by my partner Junjie. Okay, now let's continue to the introduction part. In this part, the writer gives us his experience. And firstly is pursuing a doctoral degree, and the secondly, he developed expertise as a journalist and public relations practitioner. The third one is he research and writing a dissertation about qualitative research methods. While doing the coursework, he learns something about quantitative knowledge, such as descriptive statistics, t-test procedures, chi-square test, regression analysis, factor analysis, structural equation modeling, and SPSS. And this coursework also focuses on basic matters, such as having a well-written research questions stating the purpose of the study. And after that, he also gives us introduce something about his professor, especially for the statistics professor. They have some suspicious about qualitative research. They think a good professor seems to consider a methodology with the suspicions such as hypothesis replaces the testing, explanations replaces the measurements, understanding replaces the making of generalization. Besides these experiences above, the writer also do some changes, such as he started to became skeptical of this kind of research, and he also lets the topic and goals detected the methodology, and thirdly he gets appreciates and supports from research methodologies for research methodology from dissertation committee members. The next one is knowing quantitative research methodology and assumptions is important. Besides this, he thinks the quantitative and qualitative research have distinct and complementary strengths, such as qualitative research yields data instead of depth and details of phenomena and lived experiences. The last part is about the writer's current perspective. The writer referred to the inner voice researchers that they should be immersed in introspections, such as if when they do the dissertation, they had better to reflect on where I have been and how I got there. And secondly, he still continue to favor methodological approaches. He also gave us some examples, such as behaviors and interactions of the research subjects are directly observed, and respondents are encouraged to tell their own stories and reflect on their day-to-day experiences. From the author's perspective, he also think reflections could be useful qualitative data, which could produce a set of clear, flexible guidelines for preparing a dissertation using qualitative methods. The last one is he points that he is being motivated to write about the experience, so that in experience the qualitative researchers would be better prepared to sort out some of the confusing and deal with the issues they are bound to face on the dissertation journey.
Okay, so he's sorry, Wei Hong, I just wanted to make a comment here. So he's sort of giving us a background into his sort of state of mind and where he was when he set out on his PhD journey. He was a journalist, and he started out, like many of you, probably taking a lot of the sort of generic or sort of standard research methods classes with the statistics, and he realized that it wasn't really for him, and he sort of came across qualitative research, and then he realized that this is really the way he wanted to go. And so then he's mentioning here about how he sort of found that there were some key elements or characteristics of qualitative research that were of interest to him. So here he sort of lays out some of those things about being reflective, being introspective, all right, focusing on methodology. And even in the article, he mentions that he spent so much time on learning methodology that he was afraid that he was going to not spend enough time on his actual topic, because he was spending so much on learning the methodology of grounded theory, for example, and all the different techniques and all the different things that he needed to know. Here it's interesting. He talks about being motivated to write about experience, and about his own experiences. I think it's quite common for qualitative researchers to do that, because of the experience that they have is very rich, often, especially because you are engaging with people on a first-hand basis, and sometimes in very intensive ways. And that sort of sparks an interest in sharing, it sparks an interest in writing and expressing your experiences. So I think that's quite common among a lot of qualitative researchers. Have any of you, I'm going to ask this question to the group, has anybody here had any kind of experience in, for example, a research methods class or a quantitative class where you sort of got a negative kind of reaction about qualitative research from maybe a lecturer or a teacher, or somebody said, oh, that's not really scientific? Or has anybody had that experience in the class? I'm just wondering.
Not so far.
Not so far, Chang.
Yes,
Adnan, you
bro.
have. Adnan, you've had that
Yeah,
experience.
I attended one webinar. It's delivered by one university in the Gulf area.
Okay.
And there was one qualitative researcher. He was talking about the trustworthiness and all these related issues to qualitative research. One of the quantitative researchers said that, could you please explain? It's not like that. We need to have this. It is not scientific. Then, you know, that long debate, I mean, just trying to discuss and convince that person, we have this one trustworthiness. We have to do some strategies such as member checking, debriefing, all of these things, triangulation. But, you know, still some people are not convinced, I mean, enough to know about this because they are not going in depth to know how can we conduct qualitative research. I think they need to read about it, know how can we follow the logical procedures that we can fulfill the validity and reliability of the same as quantitative research.
Right.
This is my experience, bro.
Okay, thanks Adnan for sharing. Yeah. So that's quite common, actually. It's probably less common than it used to be, but it is still, I think, quite common, especially in a big sort of public group like that, where you get a mix of people, a mix of different perspectives and backgrounds. So anyway, he's talking about that here and how he was exposed very early on to a lot of that quantitative dogma about being scientific and so forth. But he had that background in journalism and stuff, I think, so it's sort of qualitative research kind of piqued his interest. Okay, so anyway, just to give some context to his PhD journey, because that's what the article is about. So, okay, Wei Hong, take it away, please. Go ahead. Continue.
Okay, Prof. Okay, next part is about his experience doing the exploratory research. Okay, I will from the following parts to introduce this part. First one is the background. The World Bank sponsored social fund program is designed to assist the third world countries in developing infrastructure and services and ultimately improving living standards or poverty reduction. Here, social fund is a variables, and the improving the living standards or poverty reduction is a result. Okay, the reason why the writer used the exploratory research is because he thinks the exploratory research could explain the social phenomenon, and because the social phenomena are invested with minimal or priori expectation in order to develop explanations of these phenomena. Okay, in the exploratory research, the design is exploratory qualitative study. In this study, the model is social work inquiries. It could be investigates, and the social work inquiry will address these questions. The first one is the characteristic of poverty-focused social fund projects. The second one, the nexus of poverty. Sorry.
Yeah, nexus. It's the coming together, nexus. Yeah.
Nexus, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Nexus of poverty reduction and the three key concepts suggested by its richer communication, participation, social capital, and empowerment. The last one is the impacts of the products on poverty.
Okay, thanks. So he's giving us a background of his study, okay, and the rationale for his study and the rationale for his qualitative method. Can you stay on that slide, Wei Hong? Sorry, Song. Song is the slide master. Are you guys familiar with this term here?
Which term, Prof?
Oh, you can't see. I just circled this word a priori. You can't see it on your screen? Oh, I guess only
it's a little bit delayed. Maybe my internet is slow.
Can you guys see that I circled a priori? Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
Okay.
can see.
Yes, Prof.
Yes,
Now I
yes.
can see it.
Are you
Yes,
familiar
Prof.
with that term? I'm just curious.
No.
It comes up a lot
No.
and it
I
comes
s-
up.
Yes, I saw it many times, but no, don't really understand
Yeah,
it.
it's Latin. It comes up a lot in research literature. That's why I just
It's
wanted
like
to point out.
theory based, right, Prof?
Yeah, it's
Preset
pre-existing.
theory.
Yeah, pre-existing. You come with, so it's those
Mm.
pre-existing or predetermined or pre-formulated expectations. So just so you're aware, because you'll come across that a lot. So in quantitative research, it comes up a lot. Okay, so Wei Hong, Song, I should say.
Yes.
You can
Prof,
move on.
can I ask
Yeah,
a
Shahida.
question about that?
Yeah.
That minimal a priori. When you say that, not you say, I mean, when the literature say it comes with a minimal a priori.
Yeah.
So does it mean that when we are, I mean, we have done our literature review, and suddenly when we analyze the data that we collected, and we found out that all those things that we write in the literature review is not relevant, does it mean that we have to do it all over again or something like that?
Well, that's probably an extreme situation. You probably rarely would that happen, that nothing you wrote in the literature review is relevant in your findings. Of course, you will come across, or you will arrive at things that are definitely new, that were not in the original literature review, and that's expected in a qualitative study, and that's fine. And that just gives you more. That gives you more to work with in your discussion. You know what I mean? So that's actually a good thing, because that allows you to discuss your findings in a lot more depth. So you can say, well, from the original literature review, this was not an issue. Few scholars have actually pointed this out. There's not many previous studies on this, right? And so, you know, but in our findings, we found this, and this is linked with other things like this, and this. So it gives you an opportunity to expand on that literature review, but you would do it in the discussion. So you don't have to go back and redo the literature review. That's actually a misnomer, that, you know, you go back and you redo your whole literature review after you get your findings. No, that's the purpose of a discussion. That's why you have a discussion section in a thesis. And unfortunately, a lot of students nowadays, some don't write any discussion section. Some write very, very brief discussion sections. I just had a Viva yesterday. The student did a very nice mixed method study, but his discussion was, I mean, this big study, and he had only about a 2-page or 3 pages of discussion. You know, a discussion is a very, very important part of the study, and it often requires a secondary literature review. You have to go back to the literature to make sense of your findings, right? That's what a discussion is all about. So yeah, Shahida, to answer your question, definitely that gives you more to play with in your discussion.
Thank you, Prof.
Okay, sure. All right.
Yes, bro.
Yes, Anand.
Yeah, I encountered the concept priori while I was reading about coding. Before that, for example, priori codes.
Yeah.
That's based on theoretical framework. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, that's true. They do refer to that sort of deductive approach to coding as a priori coding. Yeah. Good point. Okay. Thanks. Problem statement. So let's see what his problem statement was about. Okay, well.
Okay, I'll continue, Prof. Okay, previous studies of social funds were mainly an impact assessment by evaluators of the World Bank. The issues concerning social funds at the institution level and the numerical data generated in the press. Second one is those studies give insufficient attention to the dynamics of social funds that might have an impact on poverty in local communities. There's a problem statement for his study. Okay.
So an overwhelming amount of quantitative data existed on these programs, but no real very little on explaining the dynamics of how these programs are undertaken, right? And so that's a really important problem because especially when you have, these programs are often in the millions and millions of dollars that they spend. And so they can collect a lot of numerical data, but they don't really understand how it's actually impacting people's lives. And so I think that's really what he was trying to get at. Okay, so it's a good problem statement. Okay, Wei-Hong, sorry, I keep cutting you off.
Yes, Prof. So based on the problem statement, the problems, so the writer want to achieve the objectives. After the study, it can provide a better understanding of social funds as a poverty reduction mechanism by focusing on the qualitative aspects of communities, structures, processes, and programs. Okay. Please move to the next slide. Okay. Here he offers the interview questions. Analyzes data on 5 parts. The first part is community members' roles. The second part is the outcomes of social funds projects. The third part is the community external relations. The first part is problems and challenges. The last part is individuals' satisfactions. Okay, in this study, the writer used the framework is naturalistic ontology. It has the characteristics of naturalistic research includes natural setting, qualitative methods, purposive sampling, inductive analysis, grounded theory, case study reporting mode, and tentative application of findings, and special criteria of trustworthiness. Okay, this is a characteristic of naturalistic research. Next part is about the qualitative methods was considered appropriate for an analysis of concepts and themes derived from an exploration of social funds, about which relatively little was known and about which in-depth understanding was designed. Okay, this also the characteristics of qualitative research methods. Here, the writer also gives us the purpose of the study. From the study, the ideas presented in this paper can serve as a guidelines for the dissertation process, so that the committee members may become more sensitive to the needs of doctoral students, and the students may avoid pitfalls along the dissertation path. Okay, here the writer or the author gives us his experience of doing the exploratory research. Next part, he will point out the some lessons he has learned from the study. Okay, now let's move on to next part. 7 lessons sharing. The first lesson is triple read. The lesson 2 is consult the experts. The lesson 3, adhere to university regulations. In today's presentation, I just mentioned lesson 1 and lesson 2, and my partner Junjie will do the presentation for lesson 3 to lesson 7. Okay. Okay, next lesson 4 is pay attention to rigor and trustworthiness. Lesson 5 is about give details of their methodology. Lesson 6 introduce the don't be afraid to include numerical data. Last lesson, lesson 7, prepare to publish. Okay, now let's move on to the lesson 1, raise. Okay, the writer mentioned that if we want to do the dissertation, to write the dissertation, we should read extensively and read more. Because if we read extensively and read more, we can know what research exists and how others have treated a particular topic. So one can determine what additional research is needed. This is the process of read more. You can find the research gap, and you will know the previous studies. Okay, and the author or writer also pay attention to read the journal articles and textbook materials. And because sorry, Prof.
Sorry, go ahead. Are you done with this slide yet? No, not yet. Still going. You finished this slide on read, read.
No.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, you finish first. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. And the third one is committee sign. After signing off on the dissertation proposed by committee, and the researcher can continue to do the literature research.
So, okay, so reading now, it sounds so simple, right? Read. But what he's saying here is actually, yes, reading is critical. What the point here, though, is also that it's not only that you're reading materials related to your topic, but as a qualitative researcher, you have to read a lot about your method as well. Okay, so a lot of statistics students, they have to spend a lot of time taking like short courses and, you know, getting advice from people on how to run different statistical methods and analyses and stuff like that. So they need to learn very mechanical kinds of methodological tools and so forth. With qualitative research, it's quite different because you really have to understand your methods, your approach, and why you're doing what you're doing at every stage. So it requires a larger literature review that's related to methodology. So you have your literature review related to your study topic, but you're going to also have a literature review related to your methodology. Okay, whatever method, whatever specific approach you're using, you know. So if you're using, even if you're just using generic qualitative research, well, you still have to learn and have to read about and study on how to do thematic analysis and how to analyze data in that method and so forth. In fact, a student yesterday asked me a question about a method that she wanted to use, and you know, she said, is this the appropriate method for my topic? I asked a few questions, and then it turns out that she was basing everything she was doing on one single textbook. Now, you cannot do that in qualitative research. You cannot base everything you're going to do on one textbook, on one source. Okay. So for example, like people like Creswell, everybody loves Creswell. Okay, the guy's a very good communicator when it comes to methods. And so you can use that as the basis for your, you know, your methodological work, but you cannot solely rely on Creswell. Like if you're doing case study, or if you're doing phenomenology, if you're doing grounded theory, there are particular sources within that tradition that you also need to refer to. You cannot only, because Creswell is sort of a generic qualitative author. He writes in a generic sense. He writes overviews mostly of these different methods. He doesn't get into the details. You know, so that's really important. So that's what he's referring to here. Read, read, read. He's talking about methods as well. Okay, methods. All right. So it's not only just relying on big textbooks or you know, sort of basic textbooks. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Now you can continue.
Okay, please move on to next slide. Thank you. Okay. Peruse the literature. Okay. Firstly, after peruse the literature, the researcher can identify the purpose of the study and the author's approach to achieving that purpose. Okay. And it's he also noted the review of prior literature. If we read the prior literature, we can know what has studies and what should we do to fill the gap. Okay, next one is the theoretical framework and the concepts germane to this framework. You'd better to after reading the literature, you'd better to find the theoretical framework, and then you can use it or you can relate it to your own research. Okay, next one is the study and design. Okay. After that, you should know the methods and instruments. Moreover, you will raise the research findings. Next slide, please. During the literature, you'd better to do the critical thinking about questions such as what were the, for example, what was the units of an analysis and how were they selected? How clearly were the data presented and discussed? What interpretations and conclusions were drawn from the findings? And it's a very important process to do the critical thinking. Also, it's vital to think more these questions, which could help you to find the right way to continue your research. Okay, next slide, please.
So he's talking about reading critically. Okay, reading critically.
Yeah.
So when you do your literature review, you're not just reading passively, where you know you just read it goes in one ear and out the other. You're reading with questions in mind. All right. What was as he's reading these studies, what was the unit of analysis? How did they choose their participants or their unit of analysis, whatever it is? Looking at the way the data is presented and discussed, what was agreeable, or what did he find that was effective, and so forth. So, going through and reading. That's why in the old days, when we used to read with highlighters, right? And so, like, you come across a passage in a text that's you find relevant, or it answers some question, you highlight it, right? And then you take a pencil and you write a question next to it, or you write a note next to it. I like to buy used books online, and when I buy these used books, whenever I get them, there's always, people have always marked them up. People have always written on them and asked, written little notes in the margins and questions, and that's active reading. That's critical reading. That's the way graduate students have to read. You can't just go through it and gloss over it and then expect that it's going to help you in your work. You have to really read with a critical eye. Okay, and that's what he's referring to here. It's very important. Okay, keep going, William.
Okay. And the writer introduced his experience about the doctoral seminar. In this seminar, he knows some knowledges. The first one is three principal research paradigm. Here he he mentions positivistic and interpretive and critical, but the writer focused on to examine the epistemology, ontology, and methodology of qualitative research. And it also shows us the objectives of the methodologies to develop the theory or refine concepts. Okay, the last part is words markets for qualitative methodology. In qualitative methodology, if the researcher use the qualitative methodology, you can see some words like exploration, meaning, naturalistic, thematic, and understanding, and so on.
Right, and not testing and not hypotheses and not evaluation. Okay, so be careful of, be careful of your language.
Okay. When the writer do the research, when the writer do the reading, and something will come in mind. Firstly is critical thinking coming into play, and it better to question after questions corrupt into the minds. And the last one is see how salient idea and key concepts connect and feel the impact of insight and discovery.
Okay.
Also, the writer mentioned the saturation process. In this process, the researchers should connect data from the field with conception in the literature. And also the literature will suggest the sub-themes, such as voicing common concerns, focusing on the common goods, and emphasizing collective responsibility. Besides, there are something will come across relevant theoretical constructs described in these terms, such as concerning that go beyond the purview of any particular party, mutually beneficial relationship, common goals, and shared responsibility. Okay. This about the reading the literature, and next part is traditional and methods while reading. Okay, here he mentions the 5 major qualitative research tradition, such as biography, case study, ethnography, grounded theory, and phenomenology. Okay, here the writer picks the grounded theory with case study. Okay, next thing is the most popular qualitative research method. It contains interviews, observation, and documented studies. In this research, the writer picks 3 methods from the. Okay, next one he mentioned the pioneers, pace setters, the movers and shakers of qualitative research, and he gives some names about them.
So these names should become familiar to you as you read more and more on your methods. You should come across certain names that are familiar. And it's important to know who the major scholars are in the field, and then in particular your approach, the particular approach that you're using. So, for example, within the the corpus of case study literature, who are the major scholars in case study? So if you are looking at a particular tradition, you should be familiar with who some of those people are. It's important because they're the ones that have laid down a lot of the core, like Creswell, for example. I mean, he's more of a generalist. He cuts across, but he's someone that a lot of people know nowadays, especially. But you should be familiar with these scholars. Okay, next.
Next part gives us some examples about these famous persons, such as Deborah has been contributing to the ongoing debates about the paradigm, principles, and procedures of qualitative research. For some new researchers, they will be benefited by perusing pages primers on qualitative methods. And he also introduced us the book named the very useful book. In this book, there are some chapters on graded theory, narrative analysis, ethnography, case study research, mixed methods, okay, and so on. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this part is about the benefits of reading. The first one is the researcher can be able to compile a comprehensive annotated bibliography, table of studies, and literature review with the depth and breadth of coverage. Okay, section 1, reviewers thought the cited literature was seminal, appropriate, and timely. The third part is the researchers can be able to measure the extent to which the research findings would expand the body of literature on the topics of the study. And next one is be able to ensure their own self-improvement. Okay, the last one is the more the writer reads the research reports, the more the researchers wanted to conduct research and write their own reports.
Okay, Wei-Hong, sorry, you guys are only on the first of the 7 lessons and it's already 10 after 7. So you need to speed up your presentation. You've got 7 of these to go to, right? And you're still in the first one. So
okay, sorry, Rob.
Okay.
Okay, I'll do faster. Okay, now let's move on to the lesson 2, consult the experts. Okay.
Okay, so this is the second lesson. The first one is read.
Yeah.
Okay. Second one.
Okay. Yeah, second one is consult the experts. I think maybe we are familiar with this part because we will do from our committee supervisory supervising committee.
It's okay.
Okay, so this part is also very important for us when we do our research. Okay, now let's study together about this part. First one is learn to consult experts, especially the dissertation committee. Okay, they were the consultants and advisors, as well as the mentors. They can provide counsel and guidance along the way. Okay, committee members can also provide critical comments on their dissertation drafts, particularly on methodology chapter and data analysis sections. That's helping to make the research process transparent and rigorous. It means that they can provide the key points about our dissertation after they are reading our essays. Okay, now next one is when committee emphasize something, the researcher should obey them and give them what they want. The second one is believe and all advice from the committee because they are professional and their knowledge and expertise advice could guide researchers to make the path to doctorate much smoother than its other would have been. It means that you'd better to accept some advice from your supervisors. So one is makes well considered decisions rather than hasty changes. For example, step down committee members after 5 months consideration. Don't do some changes friendly. You'd better to consider more about your decisions. Okay, next slide,
So
please.
sorry, let me step in. So here,
Okay.
he mentions about he had one committee member that he changed. Okay, so after 5 months, can you go back to the previous slide? Yeah. So that third one, he mentions that he changed one of his committee members. So it does happen. You know, some of you will have that experience where you have to change a committee member, you know, or even a supervisor for whatever reason. It's not that rare, so you shouldn't feel ashamed or you shouldn't feel like, you know, you're hurting someone's feelings or anything like that. It is part of the process, actually, and it happens quite a bit. You know, you need to have a good match with your supervisor, and there's often reasons that students and supervisors cannot work together. Sometimes it's based on study content or topic. Sometimes it's personality clashes. Sometimes a student feels the supervisor is not doing enough to help them. You know, so but what he's saying here is just be cautious and make sure that it's, you know, it's really worth doing. You know, make sure that this person really is someone that should be changed or dropped or whatever. So give it due consideration. It's a big decision, but it does happen quite often, and it's not that rare, and you shouldn't really feel bad about it. But especially nowadays when it's hard to find, I know supervisors are increasingly busy, and so it's hard to find supervisors nowadays. So you need to think it through. Okay, but consult your committee, as you know, when you can. Of course, when you come to your committee members, it's really important that you have something substantive to discuss with them. You know, committee members don't like when students come and they just give them like a half-baked draft of something. You know, always put your best foot forward. Always present your best work to your supervisors, right? And let them judge on that. You know, let them, even if you're not sure about what it is that you're doing, at least give it your best effort to craft and to produce something that they can give you some feedback on. You know, that will go a lot farther for you in the process. It'll work for you much better than, you know. But of course, if you just want to go and discuss with them, you know, that of course depends on them and their style of supervision and stuff like that. Okay, but it's really important to consult. Don't wait, you know, after you've been in the program for 2 years and then you finally decide to consult your supervisor. You shouldn't wait that long. Okay. Anyone want to comment on anything related to supervision at this point, because this is what the topic is about of the article? Anyone have any problems in relation to that, of what was just discussed?
Prof, maybe I have a question about
Yeah,
the
sure.
supervising. Yeah, my research is about quantitative research, but my supervisor is qualitative. So can I choose her as my main supervisor?
Usually the main supervisor does not have to be the methodological expert. Usually the main supervisor, you want their expertise to be more on the topic of your study, the substantive area or topic of your study. And usually your other committee member or another committee member is going to be more on more with the expertise related to your method. So your supervisor does not have to be, no, your supervisor does not have to be an expert in the same methodology you are planning on using.
Okay, I see. Because my supervisor say that he's focused on the qualitative research, and he asked me to think more about my choices. Yeah, so
Yeah, well, that may be his personal level of comfort. He may just not be comfortable supervising you because you're doing a quantitative study. That's a personal decision. Some supervisors do feel that way. But of course, there's nothing that says that you can't, like usually if I have a student that comes to me with a methodology I'm not familiar with, even though I'm familiar with the topic, I will ensure that they get a co-supervisor who is familiar with that methodology. So at least somebody on the committee is there to help with the methodological issues. Yeah.
okay. From your advice, can I choose her as my main supervisor because I like her very much? But
well, yeah, liking her personally
yeah.
is one thing, but can she help you in terms of the content of your study? I mean, is she familiar? Does she have a strong working knowledge of your topic, your thesis topic? That's also very important.
We are from the same faculty and the same program.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
same program. When it comes to research, though, it's not necessarily a match just because they're from the same program. I mean, it might be. It really depends. It really depends on the personal view of the supervisor. So sometimes like it depends. Like usually when it comes to main supervising, as the main supervisor, I like to be very familiar with my students' topic. I don't really like being the main supervisor for a student if I'm not familiar with their topic. But nowadays we don't really have as much of that luxury to do that because we have so many students. So sometimes we sort of have to take students, even though they're not they're not really doing something directly related to what we are, of our areas, our backgrounds and so forth. Anyway, it is a match. It's like matchmaking, there has to be a good match, a good connection between the two. There has to be a shared interest. That's what makes the best relationship between supervisor and supervisee.
Okay, Prof. Thank you.
Okay, so we got 10 more minutes. So go ahead, continue, please.
Okay, the next last part. Yeah. Okay, I will finish the last part. Proceeding of the supervising. Okay. Once there's overall agreement on expectation, procedures, and timeline, the students or candidates should keep going on researching, and also get some support from the community members. And doctoral students should welcome their committee's assessment and advice. Okay, the last one, find other qualitative research expertise elsewhere if they are not available on campus.
Yeah, so you have to, you cannot.
Thank you.
Students
for
cannot.
your.
Oh, sorry, wait, sorry. Go ahead, finish.
Sorry, Prof. Okay. Okay. Thank you for your time. my friends and my professor. That's my presentation. Next part is for Junjie. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Wei Hong.
Thank you.
So Junji, you can start now because you guys still have a long ways to go, I think, and it's already 7:20. So you should at least we should at least go to 7:30. So why don't you get started? Can we continue?
Professor, I think maybe the time is not enough for my presentation. 10 minutes is
No.
not enough.
No, I'm not saying you have to finish in 10 minutes. We have 10 minutes until our break. And then after the break, you'll have until 8:15. So you have another like 25 minutes after the break.
So will we take a break first?
Well, it's not quite I don't think it's Margaret yet. So let's start. You can start. Why don't you start? We'll go to 7:30 and then we'll take a break.
Fine. Okay, wait a minute.
Can you pull up your slides now, or is it a problem?
Let me have a try.
We may have to call.
Okay, I will say thanks for Song's help. Okay.
My pleasure.
Thanks you
It's my
very much.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Song.
You're welcome.
You may have to help Junji too.
Okay.
Hi, Prof. I don't know the reason because before our class, I can connect my internet well, but after class, it can't work. I don't know the reason.
Don't worry about it. These things, there's
Okay.
the reason is never really known, so don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
It's okay. It happens to me all the time too.
I'm very sorry about your time. I'm very sorry about it.
Yeah. No, the part of this assignment, the presenting the readings, part of it is to help you to learn to manage time when you're doing presentations. So that's why, I say at the beginning of the semester, try to keep your presentation within about an hour, right? So even though the articles may be long, they may be very rich in terms of content, you still have to find a way to manage the time and to keep your presentation within that time. That's part of the learning experience, is to try to manage your time when you do presentations. Okay, so that's part of it.
So can you watch my
Yes,
screen?
we can see it. We can see it. Go ahead.
Okay, fine. So thank you so much for my partner Wei Hong's presentation. And now it's my turn to present lessons shared by the author. And also we will have 3 discussions in the following time. And now let's move on to the lesson 3 here to university regulation. It is universally acknowledged that students need to abide by the regulations and guidelines in school, right? And according to the author, is that the content, organization, and the overall formatting requirements on the thesis and dissertation. We also need to pay attention to ethical standard. Actually, ethical standard was set by IRB, that is the Institutional Review Board here. And why the IRB focus on the ethical standard? Because it can protect the human research subject. And then the author put the content letter and also the research proposal in the IRB prescribed form to the IRB, and then wait a minute, sorry.
So UPM, we also have IRB. IRB is the JKE. All right, Jaukan Kuasa Etika. So we have our ethics review board at UPM. So you guys all have to make sure you get ethical approval before you conduct your studies. Okay, so it's really important. Okay, Junji, go ahead.
How can I make this bar disappear on my screen?
Oh, we can see it. We see your screen.
Okay.
Smooth sailing. It was smooth sailing for me. That one? That slide?
This one?
It says on the left, well, on the right, it says the basic elements of informed consent are the following.
Yes, but the bar has hidden some information here, right?
I think it's clear. We can see.
So can you help me which ones I click, because I don't want this bar appear here.
Oh, Song is still presenting.
No, I'm not present.
Oh.
Yeah, I run it by myself, but I just want help from Song. How can I remove this bar?
Okay, why don't we do this? Why don't we do this?
You can put press the control and the central button. Okay.
Yeah, I suggest this. Okay, hang on. Let's take our break now. Junji, let's take our break now, and then while we're breaking, you and Song can maybe work out the slides while we take our break.
Okay.
I figured out. Okay.
Professor, before break, I have a request.
Oh, okay, Nazrul, go ahead.
Please don't mind. It would be better if you give us some guideline about our final exam, because I am in a lot of pressure about some assignment, different subject. So it would be better if you give us some guideline about our final exam.
Yeah, okay. I will do that before the class is over. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Professor.
All right. Okay, so let's take our break now. Junji and Song, you can work out the slides, and we'll come back. We'll come back at 7:50. Okay.
Okay. Hello, Song.
Yeah, I'm here. You can try to press control and.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Is everyone back?
Yep.
Yes.
Junji, were you able to resolve your computer problems? Oh, maybe he's not back yet. Is Song there? Song, are you there?
Yeah, we fixed it.
You fixed it. Okay. Actually, I think what we'll do first is so I don't forget, because I did promise that I would give some information about the final exam, and I know Nazrul is eagerly anticipating some information on that, as well as I'm sure other students. So I think I'm going to first just take a few minutes to go over the final exam before we continue with the presentation. Okay.
Yep.
Right?
Okay.
Chiang, you seem to be speaking on behalf of the entire class tonight. Nobody else.
Sorry.
No,
I just didn't want the uncomfortable silence.
Don't say sorry.
It's okay, Pro. It's
No,
okay, Pro.
we're very proud of you, Chang. Don't say sorry. Okay. So in terms of your final exam, so I'll go through it now. So for those who are unfortunately not here, or they're not tuned in, I don't know what's going on, but it seems very quiet tonight, even though there's a lot of people in the class. So the final exam will be an essay format. Okay, so it'll be all essay questions. I will give you 4 questions, and you will have to choose 3. All right. Nazrul, are you here? Just to make sure you're here, because you're the one that asked for this.
Yes, sir, I am here.
All right. So there'll be 4 questions, and you'll have to choose 3 out of the 4. Okay, so you have 2 hours to write 3 questions, to answer 3 essay questions. Okay, which is about 40 minutes a piece. So it should be plenty of time. It is open source, so you can refer to your notes and readings and all that if you need to. All right. So just in terms of topics, some things to look for. I can't give you I can't be too specific, but things I would look for and prepare for. So there's going to probably be a question related to, because we did talk about the 5 different traditions. I'm not going to ask you to go into any of those 5 traditions in detail, but I will most likely ask a question about what are some of the, just to know the basic similarities and differences between them. Okay, so like what are some common characteristics of those different traditions? What are some of the differences between them? Okay, so just that sort of thing. So you can differentiate between them. Okay, so there's probably going to be a question in relation to that. Definitely you need to know something about positionality and reflexivity. Okay, so what is positionality and what is reflexivity in the course of conducting a study in qualitative research? Why is it important, especially for determining the quality of the study? All right, why are those, why do we even bother with those things? How do they impact on the quality of a qualitative research study? All right, so I would definitely take a look at that. There might be a question in relation to your own PhD study proposal in whatever form it's in. Okay, so, like thinking about your own rationale for your study. Why is a qualitative research approach the best approach for what you're trying to study? Okay, so there could be a question in relation to your own PhD proposal. All right, so be prepared to answer questions in relation to your own work in terms of, again, rationale, maybe what you plan to do in terms of your how you plan to collect your data and why. Okay, it's definitely going to be a question in relation to your logic. Okay, the research logic, not just what you're going to do, but why are you going to do it that way? Okay, so again, I want to see your understanding of why you're using a qualitative methodology. Okay, and different qualitative techniques. All right, that's important. And then there's going to most likely be a question in regards to, I'm going to give you a scenario. So I'll give you like a research topic, a small sort of story that's going to present some sort of research topic, and I'm going to ask you to design very briefly, design a small study. Okay, so what would be the purpose of the study? What would be the research questions of the study? Okay, which approach would you use? That kind of thing. All right, so there'll most likely be a question like that. I can't tell you more about that. It's just going to be, that's the format of the question. I can't really give you the question, but that's the format of the question. So you're going to have to be able to, develop a very brief, of course, very brief a study based on a scenario that I give you. And then lastly, there might be a question where I ask you to, or I give you a topic, and then I ask you to write research questions for that topic from different traditions. So for example, like if I give you a topic related to, university learning or something, and I ask you to come up with 3 different research questions according to 3 different qualitative traditions. So for example, if it's case study, what would the research question be? If it's grounded theory, what would the research question be? If it's phenomenology, what would the research question be? Okay, so something like that. Okay, so you're gonna have to devise research questions based on the tradition. Okay, and so that is something, so that would force you to know a little bit more about the different traditions, again, what their aims are, what's the sort of goal of each tradition in terms of what they're trying to understand, trying to learn from that methodology and so forth. Okay, so that's pretty much it, and that's pretty much all I can tell you. Also, I can't tell you much more outside of giving you the actual questions on the exam. Okay. Are there any questions about that?
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Prof. Clear.
Okay, Nazrul, anything? You okay? Is it clear?
Not yet, sir.
Not yet. Well, okay. Well, if you want to go back, this is being recorded, so you can always go back and listen to what I said again if you want. If you're not sure, and you can follow up. All right.
Prof, may I just know, like,
yeah.
Sorry, Chai here. May I just know, like, you're expecting, I mean, for each question, if it's an essay, roughly a page or 2 pages?
I'm not really big on, just answer the question as best you can given the time that you have, be as thorough as you can. like I said, some of the questions are very specific. Like I ask you for research questions, so you're just going to write the research question.
Yep.
Others you have to elaborate more, like especially if there's a question about like, what is reflexivity and why is it important or something like that, you're going to have to elaborate on that, obviously.
Okay.
So just, I can't really give you, I don't really make any requirements in terms of space or length.
No,
Just
I was just wondering because I kind of like have to budget myself, like how much time I should spend on each.
Yeah, no, like I said, I mean, it's 3 questions, 2 hours, so it's about 40 minutes. I wouldn't you spend more than that, on any one question. I mean, if you go a little bit above that and a little bit less on another question, that's fine. I mean, you may be able to answer a question in 10 minutes if you know it really well. Another question might take you longer. You may have to do a little bit of background research before you start writing. So that's why I only give you 3 questions, because I assume that in some cases you're going to have to do some. You have to go back to your references a little bit, and so I do give you this. There's adding. I mean, 2 hours should be plenty of time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Prof.
All right.
But fast typing is very important. Someone is typing slow, someone is typing fast.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, that is true. That is true.
Thank you.
That is a consideration. I have to admit, that is a consideration. Maybe you want to get some kind of Google speech software you can download for free online. So you can just dictate it into the computer and it'll type it up for you.
Those software are horrible for different slangs and accents.
There's a good one called Speech Notes that I use. It's really good for qualitative research, actually. Speech Notes. You can get on your phone. I don't have my phone, but it's quite accurate, actually. It's really nice when you're out in the field and you want to just write, you just want to jot down ideas and stuff, and you don't have time to type. It's called Speech Notes. You can download for free. It's an app. It works really well. Of course, it's not perfect.
Yeah. Because I tried the one in NVivo, the transcription. They give you like a free trial of the transcription service, and it was really bad because my participants spoke in Malaysian English mixed with Malay, and also when it came out, it was like I have to redo this all by myself.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Now they say they have this AI element to them so that they learn your speech patterns the more you use it, the better it gets, because it learns the speech patterns. But I haven't used it enough to really test that. Okay, so Shahira said you can use Grammarly and Quillbot to help with the grammar and sentence structure. Shahira, yesterday in the Viva that I was examining, the student, his write-up was quite poor. The quality of the write-up was really bad, to be honest. It was very sloppy, and all 3 examiners complained about his, and we asked him, we said, didn't you get your work edited before you submitted for your Viva? And he said he only got the 1st and the 6th, the last chapter, edited. And then we said, well, what did you do with the rest of the chapters? He said he used Grammarly. So Grammarly, for him, Grammarly was not very effective. Okay, so I would not rely on Grammarly.
But because I noticed that sometimes Grammarly stated things like it's not really like what we think it should be, right? But at least it will give what we call that, a general structure of it. Then we can also try to think of ourselves to actually edit the structure. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's good. I mean, if it helps, that's great. But I wouldn't rely solely on it. Okay. All right. What else here?
We should download question from Putra Blast, and then we will start MS Word format.
No, I'm gonna just post the questions in the WhatsApp group.
WhatsApp group.
Yeah. I don't want to rely on Putra Blast, so I'm gonna just put in a Word. I'm gonna put the questions in a Word document, like you would get in a real exam if it was face-to-face, actually. And then you can download the Word document from WhatsApp, and then you can just email me back your answers.
Okay.
Okay. So no one has to rely
Prof,
on less.
Prof, any specific subject for us to put in the email for us to send to you?
In the email, just put DCE final 6925 final exam.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, that'll work.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah. Okay. Wu, question for you? Oh no.
Prof, I'm wondering what about is there any font requirement?
What requirement? Sorry.
A font, like the size or spacing.
No. Font. That's all totally up to you. Whatever font, size, whatever you want to use.
Okay, thank you, Prof. I will follow your font.
Oh, okay. No problem. All right. Okay, so we still have next week. If you have questions that come up, you can always ask me next week. So let's let Junji now finish up his presentation. Junji, you have until 8:30. I actually thought this was going to be one of the faster presentations this semester, but you guys are going into great depth. So being true qualitative researchers.
Wait a minute, and I will share my screen now. Can you look at my screen now?
Yep.
Okay.
But we don't see anything.
Wait, please. Wait a minute. Can you see it now?
Not yet.
Oh my God. Oh.
Oh, here it comes. It's slow. It has to come all the way from China, so maybe it's just a little bit slow. That's all.
No, I don't know what happened to my computer. It takes 2 days.
Okay, there. It's up now. You can maximize it and then go ahead.
Wait a minute. This one. Okay.
Well, it's so interesting looking at PowerPoint in Chinese. Okay.
Okay. Okay, now let's continue. Just now we have mentioned about the wait a minute. We have just mentioned about the consent. So actually in the consent, you need to talk about your study and also the procedure and also who you are, and to make sure that your participants are voluntary to participate in your research, and also to tell that they have the right to withdraw at any time without penalty, and also you need to keep the secret for them, and also you need to tell what's the benefits and risks in this participant. And also you need to put the ethical elements into your implication. Here you need to tell your readers how do you obtain your content, and also who are your subjects, and also the data confidentiality, and also other ethical questions. And just now, Professor, you have mentioned that it is about the requirement on our thesis. You said that UPM also have the same requirement on our consent, right? But you know that because of some traditional customs in China, Chinese won't pay much or won't focus much about this. So the author said that here we can see that in the screen. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's about discussion later. Wait. Oh my God. It's frozen.
So what is the issue in China with the consent forms? Is it the consent form that's the problem?
Yeah, wait a minute. My slide is frozen. Oh my God.
It's just not your. It's just not your night,
What
Junji.
happened?
Just not your night.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, what we can do is you can, if it's really not working, just send me the slides. You can just email me the slides, and then we will. I mean, go ahead. You can try and get it to work. Just try for a minute or two, and then after that, we'll just call it a night. I think with the presentation, and we'll proceed with the rest of the class. Try again.
Okay.
It's just one of those nights.
Share my screen. Well, before our discussion, now, Professor, can you see my screen? Okay. Well, before our discussion, the author also explained how did the IRB respond to him, and we can see that it says that there's no or minimal risks, and also procedures for which a written consent is not normally required outside the research context. So why the author mentioned about this? Because if you research something about the special population, for example, the children or some disabilities and also persons, institutions, then it might cause some obstacles in your research. And here I have a question about a description that is persons in institutions. Is there a let me see, is there a jargon or just the euphemism here? Persons in institution, or does it simply refers to for example, the administrators in school or the public servants in government? So, Professor, can you tell me about this?
Yeah, I believe that it's referring to people who are in institutions like prisons, for example, or mental hospitals. In other words, they may be under a certain level of what's the word? They're institutionalized. In other words, they cannot leave those places. They're for whatever reason, and so they're under the authority of the institution, right? So they're harder to reach. There may be special procedures that you have to go through to get access to them. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Right.
then that is about our discussion. Just now we have mentioned the consent, the consent, right? And in China, people won't focus or won't emphasize this because of some of our customs. So how do you think of this statement that the author said the informed consent is certainly an important feature of ethical consideration in any research involving human subjects. So do you think it is universally the same all around the world?
No, it's not. In fact, in Malaysia, we have issues with consent as well. In fact, I was doing a study in Sabah, and we were at a school, and we asked the principal. We told the principal that all the children, the students in the school had to fill out this consent form. And so when he saw the form, he immediately said, no, you cannot do that. And then we explained. I mean, he understood what it was, and he understood the purpose of it. But he said, if you do that, if you give this form to the students, then I will have every parent in my school calling my office, because he's afraid that the parents won't understand what it's for, what the purpose is. They'll think it's some kind of government, letter of something, something very serious, and they won't understand. They'll panic and they'll call up the principal and be like, what are you doing? What are you giving to my child? What's this study that they're going to do? And so because of that lack of information about research and these kind of things, we were not allowed to actually give them the consent form. So the school principal took full responsibility for the well-being of the students on behalf of the parents. So yeah, and that is the reality, in that it's not always going to be culturally doable, to be honest. So you have to try your best. You have to try your best to explain and to educate people about why we have these forms and what they're for and so forth. But you're definitely going to get cases where people, they will not accept, or they won't understand it.
So, Professor, when we submit our dissertation in the future, should we handing such as consent to our university?
You'll include an example in your appendix, an example of the consent form, but you also have to get the ethical approval from the university, right? And then you have to indicate that you carried out, the consent process, and then you have to show examples. So, show an example in your appendix of the consent form and so forth.
And what about some publishers? Should we do the same thing?
Well, publishers, I mean, in journal articles, they just expect you to make a statement, a declaration that consent. First of all, ethical approval was obtained for the study, and then in the method section, you have to mention that consent was provided by the participants, and then also there needs to be a declaration of ethical approval by the institution. Yeah, so you need to indicate. Some journals will even ask for the approval number that they give you. Like once your study is approved ethically by the review board, they'll give you a number, like I forget what they call it. It's like some kind of serial number, approval number or something. And some will actually require that number.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Oh my God. Oh.
Still frozen.
Oops.
Well, we can just talk about this one slide for the rest of the class.
No. Okay, I will stop sharing first. Like that. Oh.
This is the slow and steady approach, people. One slide at a time, no rushing.
Yeah, sometimes it will confuse earns a lot when we attend some training sessions in China. And it is also the same, no matter it is in China or abroad.
Yeah.
Discussion
the online world.
Discussion 1. Yeah.
Well, after the class, maybe you guys can just make sure you share your slides with the in the WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
So that the students can have them, because I don't think we're going to get to your whole presentation tonight.
Okay, let me have a chat about in this condition. Okay. Okay. Why the ethical concern will appear? Because when the researchers carried on their researchers, they might become immersed in the life of their participants, and also the researchers have the freedom to interpret their data in their personal perspectives. So a critical distance is necessary. And the author also recalls some experience when he carried out such thing, and he said that it is quite important to manage to get the data about the ordinary people instead of some people that you think they might be right. That's one of the way that you need to do to avoid your personal beliefs and also the biases. Okay, then it is about lesson 4. Lesson 4, it is you have to pay attention to rigor and also the trustworthiness. And Paget once put forward the some elements about the rigor. Here we can have a look at it. There is the prolonged engagement, triangulation, peer debriefing and support, member checking, negative case analysis, auditing. But for this author, he just emphasize the triangulation, and here we can see from the figure 1 that there are 3 actions he took when he carried on the triangulation. That is the interview, observation, and also documents. And also the scholars, for example, Denson and Lincoln suggest 4 factors about the trustworthiness. There is the credibility, transferability, dependability, and also the conformability. Now, first of all, let's have a look at the credibility. So what does it mean here? Actually, it refers to the confidence one can have in the truth of the findings. And here for the author, he adopted the triangulation, member checking, and also negative case analysis. As for the triangulation, there are 3 parts. Here it is. When you carry on your interview, you have to try your best to make it interesting, because if it is quite a bold one or not one, maybe you won't get enough information that you want to have. And also you need to put the emerging themes derived from the interview to your result chapter. And also the field observation can be supplement to your research. And also the document reviews is necessary, but it is quite easy because you can finish this part at home. Actually, we can see that in the slide of PPT, that is maybe there is the line 2. The author said that I was not offering a cure for insomnia. Maybe I'm a little bit confused about the here because it seems that the author want to say that he tries best to avoid his interview being so bored, right, Professor?
The time came for me to draw upon the interviews for my research report. Well, it's a way, yeah.
Preposition here, he used for but not of, so it's a little bit confused.
Hold on a second. I'm looking at the text itself. He's talking about his own writing style, actually. He's trying to say that he was trying not to make the write-up sound too boring. That was a cure for insomnia is a joke. It's like, you know, you give it to somebody who can't sleep and then they'll read it and they'll fall asleep because it's really boring. Okay, so he's saying he's trying to avoid writing something that was really boring. So he says, I did that by constructing a compelling narrative, an interesting story, right? In other words, so
we can maybe we can also say that not offering a cure of insomnia, right?
Yeah, please, no cures for insomnia. Yeah.
Okay, so now let's move on. That is about, sorry.
So I'm going to go and elaborate a bit more on this after Junji's done with his presentation on trustworthiness. So you can go through this. You can skip all this actually.
Then it is about member checking. Here, you need to give a call to your respondents to ask about the data analysis. And also you have to try to get some data from those people who are not involved in your interview, and that is the so-called member checking. And also, when we talk about the negative case analysis, the function of it is to check whether the characteristics or properties of the emergent themes were applicable to all cases. That's the negative case analysis.
So these are our strategies. These are all strategies for ensuring the rigor and the trustworthiness of the study. This is quality and quality research. This is reliability and validity. These are some of the approaches used to ensure the quality of the finding, trustworthiness of the finding. Okay, so member checking, okay, negative case analysis, triangulation. These are the strategies that he's talking about. Okay, any questions about that? So if I ask you on your final exam, what's member checking? I think you guys should all know that, right? At this level, you should know. If you don't know member checking at this level, it's a problem. So at what points do you do member checking? Who can tell me? Anybody?
The transcription of the interview.
Okay, so one point is after transcribing, then do member checking with the respondents after you've transcribed and show them the transcript. That's one place. Another one?
Once we come up with our findings.
Right. So you can negotiate your findings with your respondents at that stage. Now that can be done earlier on. It can be done later on. It doesn't really matter. It's really up to you. At what point do you want feedback? Do you want input from your respondents? So there's no rule on that, but it's really up to you. But of course, if you do it later, it's probably better only because they'll be commenting on more of a finished product. right? And that will help you to sort of round out and complete the study. So, okay, next, Junji.
Okay.
You got 3 minutes,
And it is
Junji. 3 minutes.
only 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Then it is about the transferability. Actually, the that is about other researchers can duplicate your findings. And if you want to complete this, accomplish this part, you need a thick description about your phenomenon. And also the third one is about the dependability. And that is about the stability and also the internal coherence. So there is not discussion about the validation and also the verification. And just now we have mentioned these two terms. And what about our classmate? Do you have any idea about this? Actually, I know I want to share something with you, but you may maybe you can discuss about this before my sharing. How do you think about the validation and the verification, and also the validation and the reliability? Does anyone who want to share your opinion about this? If not, I would like to share my understanding because the validation and the verification is about it is about the checking information from the the external world. So it is from the internal from the external world. So it is something like the what was that? There's something like validity in the qualitative in the qualitative research, and for the stability of the findings over time and conformability to the internal coherence, it shares some keywords with the definition of reliability in the quantitative research. So here we can figure out that there are some elements in the trustworthiness that is the validation here. It refers to the member checking and also the negative case study, negative case analysis, and about another element that is the stability and also the internal coherence. It is something like the reliability in the quantitative research, and we can reach this kind of thing by the dependability. That's my opinion about that. So, Professor, am I right?
Well, that's a good segue actually, because the last half hour of the class I was going to discuss on these very topics, on these very issues, and I was going to so I'm going to ask you to wrap up, Junji. There, I'm going to ask you to stop there. Okay. For the slides, for the rest of your slides, I would just ask if you could just share the slides with the class through the WhatsApp group, so that people can have the slides. Okay, because we didn't get a chance to finish. So I know you had technical difficulties and stuff like that. So it happens. So don't feel bad. It's okay. It happens to all of us. So thank you for your presentation, and thank you to Wei Hung for the presentation tonight. Now I'm going to take what you started on this discussion on this. These are all the discussion on validity and reliability in qualitative research is really a discussion on trustworthiness and rigor. Okay. So I'm going to segue into from there. I'm going to segue into hold on, my PDF. Okay, so this is also I've uploaded this to Putroblast. And so I want to further discuss these 4 elements of trustworthiness that Junji has introduced in his presentation. And so it's kind of convenient that you were talking about this, and that is what I was planning on discussing in the second part of the class. Okay, so let's go through it. So I want to just go through this a little bit more carefully, so that we are clear as to not only the differences between them and the definitions, but the strategies to achieve them. Okay, the strategies to achieve them. So it's really important that you try not to equate qualitative research, trustworthiness and qualitative research with reliability and validity. Okay, because yes, there are, like as you can see here, credibility relates to or is parallel to the internal validity of a quantitative study. Yeah, there are certain parallels in terms of the concept, but they don't really cross over very well. Okay, so as you can see, the first one that Junji just mentioned also is credibility. Okay, so this is one of the 4 criteria for judging qualitative research. Okay, and credibility is simply the confidence in the truth of the findings, the truth value of the findings. All right, and credibility is built up through prolonged engagement in the field and persistent observation and triangulation of data. So triangulation is often used as a strategy for credibility. Okay, are the findings, are they reflective of what's actually happening in the setting that you're studying? Okay, so that's why the truth here is in parentheses. It's not truth with a big T. It's truth in terms of, are you capturing what's actually there? All right, and this also has to do with our discussion last week on coding. Because remember I talked about how yeah, I will share it in the WhatsApp group. Last week I talked about in coding how you cannot code what's not there in the data, right? So the credibility begins there. You know, it begins with how you even go about analyzing your data. Okay, so if you're from the very first level of coding, if you're not coding in a way that's really capturing what is in the data, then you're going to have credibility issues throughout the study, all right, in terms of your findings. So it's very important how you go about conducting your coding. So strategies to achieve that. Well, how do you check that? How do you ensure that that's being done? Well, one is persistent observation. So if you're doing an observational study, okay, you can see a prolonged engagement. Prolonged engagement is one of the strategies to ensure credibility. Okay, because prolonged engagement ensures that, again, as you can see here, it renders you open to multiple influences, all right, that would shape how you understand the phenomenon. Okay, persistent observation or prolonged engagement, okay, as you can see here, says identifying those characteristics and elements in the situation that are most relevant to the problem. Okay, so prolonged engagement provides scope, persistent observation provides depth. So for example, if you're doing a study where you need to go into the field, then you need to show that you've been in the field for a long enough time so that your findings really represent or ring true to what's actually happening in the setting. If you've ever read a really good ethnography study, you see the level of depth and richness that they write with. That is because they have spent so much time in the field. They have spent an extended time in the field, and they've engaged with a lot of people. They've collected a lot of data, and it really shows through their findings. If you've read a study where the researcher or the student has not spent a lot of time in the field, has not had a lot of engagement with the research setting, it clearly shows in the write-up. Okay, there's very little depth to the study. There's very little description. There's very little, they can't really elaborate on a lot of the findings that they've reported. Okay, so these are all indicators that they have not really engaged in this idea of prolonged engagement or persistent observation. So persistent observation here, it says, involves using adequate numbers of observations, meetings, interviews, etc., so that participants feel enough confidence and trust in the researcher to allow for adequate study of the cultural context and adequate checks for misinformation. Okay, so you need to really show that you've spent an adequate time in the field. So I had a student ask me, you know, Prof, if I'm doing a case study on a school, can I just do my field work for 3 weeks? Is that enough time? And I said right off the bat, no, it's not. It's not enough time, especially for a PhD. 3 weeks is not enough time to do to constitute prolonged engagement. Because 3 weeks, you know, you could be there. 3 weeks could be just like the final exam period, right? And so you might be there catching the school at a time where they're going through final exams, which is not the normal school atmosphere. It's a unique time of year where things are very different than they normally would be. So you're not going to capture the true essence of what's happening in that school over those 3 weeks. All right. So prolonged engagement also allows us to see that setting in its sort of normal day environment over time, right? So you can see how things are early in the month, how things are later in the month, how things are sometimes early in the year, how they are later in the year, at different times of the year, different seasons, during different episodes. And that gives us a really rich understanding of it. Okay, so prolonged engagement here, persistent observation and the prolonged engagement, they go hand in hand. Okay, but prolonged engagement is not only about time in the field doing observation, all right? So here it mentions about observation, adequate time observing different aspects of the setting. Prolonged engagement here refers to spending extended time with respondents in their native culture. Okay, so even in terms of your interviews, right? Say you're not really doing much observational work. You're not really in the field per se so much. You're just relying mostly on interviews. Well, here prolonged engagement means, have you engaged enough with your respondents? So for example, you've done one 30-minute interview with each of your respondents. Is that really prolonged engagement? I would argue it's probably not, right? It's probably not. You know, you can't really get a good in-depth picture of what's happening with that person from one 30-minute interview. Okay, so that would pretty much probably fail the test of prolonged engagement. Okay, you cannot make that claim that you've engaged over an extended period of time, or you have sort of developed that rich in-depth understanding. One of my professors, when I did sabbatical in the US, and I took an advanced analysis class, and one of my professors said that one of the indicators of prolonged engagement, and it's also referred to as saturation, it's a different form of saturation. I can't think of the term. It's not theoretical saturation, but there's another term for it. Another indicator of saturation is they know. So for example, in a Viva, if I ask you some detailed question about your research setting, you know it off the top of your head. You know it like the back of your hand. You know that setting so well. You know those people so well because you've spent so much time with them, right? So if I just ask you a question, it's like, it's just that it's there. It's right off the top of your head because you know them so well, right? So that's another indicator actually of saturation, of prolonged engagement. Okay, and that affects the credibility of your findings. Okay, it does affect the credibility of your findings. Okay, another one here, as you can see, is triangulation. I mentioned triangulation. Okay, so triangulation is another method for ensuring credibility. Okay, so you're doing a study on, you know, teachers and quality teaching, and you've done interviews with them. And they just, you know, they're going on and on about all these great techniques of teaching they use and 21st century learning and HOTS and this and that. And woo, these teachers are really exceptional. Okay, but then when you actually go to the classroom and observe them, it's a totally different story, right? So just by engaging in an observation, you have opened up another dimension of the study. Okay, and now you're combining the intrinsic and the extrinsic data forms of data, and that's going to give you a much deeper, much truer picture of what's happening in the setting. Okay, So triangulation is, whenever possible, is of course something that's recommended. Okay, it's recommended. All right. Of course, not every study is going to be amenable to triangulation. So you cannot always have triangulation per se, or at least not always triangulation in terms of method. Okay. But data triangulation may be an option, right? If not method triangulation. All right. So triangulation is good. Peer review, peer examination, peer debriefing. You see these used different in terms of terms. They're used differently. Again, this is the process of exposing your data, your analysis, and so forth to someone outside. Okay, so it says here a disinterested peer. In other words, somebody who has no stake in the process. They're not a stakeholder in the study. They have really nothing to gain from reading over your analysis. They're just somebody that can provide you with another perspective. All right, so it says here, a peer debriefer is a person who's familiar with the researcher and project, okay, who reviews and asks questions about the qualitative study, so that the account will resonate with the people other than the researcher, okay? So ideally, it's someone other than the researcher, other than the committee members, okay? Ideally, if you're using your committee members as peer debriefers, I guess it's considered acceptable, but it's not ideal because they are sort of stakeholders in the study. All right. Negative or deviant case we've seen, okay, was just mentioned. All right, so this involves searching for and discussing elements of the data that do not support or appear to contradict patterns or explanations that emerge from analysis. Okay, deviant case analysis is a process for refining an analysis until it can explain or account for a majority of cases. So we're taught that in negative case analysis, you get to a point where you want to actually go out and seek a respondent who has a different view than what your findings suggest, because you want to understand that you want from that sort of different view, it's going to enrich and deepen your understanding of the phenomenon. It's going to add to your finding. Okay, it's going to enrich the finding. All right. So that is an important aspect, negative case analysis. And there's other ways of doing it. Bowen mentioned he went back through his transcripts and looked for incidents that did not jive with his themes that he came up with, right? And then from there, maybe he went back to his respondents to ask them about why they had a different view of it or a different opinion about it, okay? And so from there, again, you're going to get a deeper understanding. Okay, so negative case analysis is quite common, especially in grounded theory, okay, but it can also be used in other types of studies as well. For credibility, a sixth one is called referential adequacy. This one is not that popular. It's not used that frequently. You put some of the data aside, and then you do your study, and then you go back to that data later and look at how it matches up with your findings. Okay, I'm not going to go in depth into that. In some ways, it's similar to negative case analysis. And then, of course, member checking. So member checking, we all are familiar with. All right. And so this is the 7th. So for credibility, you've got 7 potential strategies, okay, that you can use. And of course, you don't have to use all of them for your study, but you should at least try to use at least 2 to ensure the credibility of the findings. Okay. The second one is dependability.
Prof?
Yes, Bull. Sorry.
Prof,
Yeah.
sorry. Is this members checking is the same as intercoder reliability?
No. So inter-rater reliability would be closer to peer debriefing. This one here, number 4. Yeah, this one, this glossary is a little bit older. So when this one was done, inter-rater reliability was not that popular a method. It's become more popular because of the influence of quantitative research on qualitative research. And so you'll see it quite a bit now. Inter-rater reliability is just a more formalized and statistical way of doing peer review or peer debriefing. It's a more systematic approach where you actually do your coding, and then you give your like a transcript or 2 to somebody else and ask them to code it as well, and then you do a statistical analysis of the similarity in the coding structure. All right. So for example, if you've coded it one way and somebody else has coded it 90% similarly, okay, then that somehow shows that your coding is more valid or something. Okay, there's been a lot of debate on inter-rater reliability within the field as to what it actually shows. You know, the fact that two people agree on a certain way of coding doesn't necessarily make it more valid. It just means that they see it the same way. You know, so what people say is better. You know, qualitative researchers that are more pro for the debriefing method, because within debriefing, there's a negotiation. So it's not just about looking at a statistical number to see whether you've coded it similarly, but there's actually discussion and negotiation. Okay, so the debriefer or the examiner looks at your coding and you engage in a discussion as to why did you code it that way? Well, I coded this way because of this, and then the debriefer will say, well, you know, did you consider this? Did you consider this theory? Did you look at it from this perspective? So there's a negotiation process, and so people have critiqued inter-rater reliability on those lines, in the sense that if you have that negotiation process in addition to the inter-rater reliability, then it's good, because there's that added qualitative part to it. Okay, but just relying on the inter-rater reliability with the statistics is not necessarily going to give you a more valid finding. Okay, so if you're going to do it, I would include the negotiation part of it. Okay, dependability is the second one here. So, and this one has to do with, this would be similar to reliability, showing that the findings are consistent and can be repeated. So remember, qualitative research is scientific. And so the reason that we have a very detailed methodology written out in our studies is so that, at least theoretically, people can take your methods and replicate them. Okay. Now, of course, we say that in qualitative research, the researcher is the instrument, there's subjectivity, no two study findings are going to be the same, et cetera, et cetera. That's all true. However, if you were to follow the methods used in this particular study, then by right, the findings you get should be at the very least similar. Okay. And so that is the argument for showing dependability. Okay, it's to show that your methods is really, they're replicable. You can repeat or replicate the study. Okay, so to do that, you have to have things like external audits, which is similar to a peer debrief. Okay, but here it's more on having a researcher not involved in research examine both the process and the product. Okay, to evaluate the accuracy and evaluate whether or not the findings, interpretations, and conclusions are supported by the data. Okay, so it is sort of like a peer debriefer, but they're sort of auditing the whole process, and they're giving you, you know, asking hard questions and looking at your. So this one would be more like your external, your supervisory committee members. Okay, so for your external auditor, now some may argue and say, well, they're not really external, but they are, because they're not involved in this study per se. So, so here it says, as distinct from a peer debriefer, an external auditor is new to the research and the project. Okay. So it says here, and this is why they say it cannot be a committee member. Person that has not read or has no knowledge of the researcher's work cannot be the committee member, researcher, or original subject, and can provide an assessment of the project. For example, how the variables in the theory interact with the researcher's variable throughout the process of the study or at the conclusion. The role is similar to a fiscal auditor, and specific questions exist that auditors might ask. So yeah, so this person is really auditing the process, and sort of like a process evaluator, right? So someone external to the study. That's why I've said many times throughout this semester, you really need somebody external to look at your work. Now, we usually in UPM, we usually say it's enough to have your supervisory committee members, okay? But if you really want it to do it right, get somebody outside, external from your committee as well, okay? Especially if you're going for your publications, okay? To have an external auditor, for example, is really strong. All right, so that's the second one. The third one is transferability. Okay, so to what degree can the results be transferred or generalized to other contexts or settings? All right. Now, of course, we say from a qualitative perspective, transferability is primarily responsible of the researcher. of the one doing the generalizing, okay? And so we do that by providing rich description, by providing a thorough job of describing the research context and the assumptions that were made going into the study. All right. So when you can, so yeah, go ahead.
Prof, just wondering, as for maximum variation, whereby we include different opinion of people, right? For example, the students, the educators, or maybe the people in the school itself. So, which one will it will fall under? Whether is it transferability or conformability or how?
Well, that's not maximum variation sampling. That's a data triangulation. You have data from different respondents. So you have students, you have teachers, so that would be more data triangulation. Maximum variation would be, for example, within, if you're studying students, for example, and you're looking at, you take a group of students and you want to have students that get the lowest grades and students that get the highest grades, right? And you want to see how these different students perceive whatever your question is. Okay, so you have the full range of participants. So that would be more like maximum variation sampling.
Thank you very much, Prof.
So in terms of transferability, yes, that can help. So that can help from the perspective of transferability. It can enhance transferability if you have a more varied or a more diverse sample within whatever case you're studying, or whatever. Okay, so that can enhance transferability. That's true. But transferability, the most important thing is rich description, so that the reader has a very clear perspective, a very clear understanding of what you're studying, of the context that you're studying. If you're doing case study, tell them all about the case, so that when they read the study, they can apply it to their own situation, and then they can make meaning of the findings. Say, hey, these findings most likely apply to us as well, because we share a lot of similarities with the case that was studied. Okay, so rich description is really the most important thing here when it comes to transferability. Okay. And then, of course, you need to indicate to what extent you feel the findings can be transferable. So, for example, if you've done a multiple case study, maybe you've studied 3 or 4 cases, and you've developed a model or something, a theoretical model or some kind of conceptual model. Maybe you feel that there is some level of transferability there because of the fact that you've incorporated a very diverse group of cases. Okay, so you can insinuate that. I mean, you can't say for certain it can be generalized, but you can qualify that generalization by saying, maybe these types of organizations that have these characteristics can benefit from these findings as well. Okay, so you can sort of qualify your generalization there. And then lastly is confirmability. Okay, so to what degree of neutrality, a degree of neutrality, or the extent to which the findings of a study are shaped by the respondents and not researcher bias, motivation, or interest. Okay, so the findings are confirmable in the sense that they are coming from the respondents and not from your bias. Okay, so reflexivity, this is why reflexivity is so important. Okay, so we are aware of the researcher's role, the researcher's background, how the researcher's background may have affected the study, and how the researcher dealt with that. How did you deal with that potential bias in the study? Okay, reflexivity. Okay, so you should, in terms of reflexivity, it says here, pay attention to 3 different things: the topics that you're investigating, okay, and their meanings to you, right, as the researcher. What is the meaning of this topic to you? Okay, the perspectives and the experiences of the persons with whom you wish to do the research. Okay, so your relation to the topic, your relation to the participants. Okay, and then the audience. All right, so audience, for a PhD, it's pretty clear your audience, but in some studies, there's a particular audience that they're targeting, policymakers or practitioners or whatever. Okay, another way of ensuring confirmability is an audit trail, okay, which is the transparent description of the research steps taken from the start of the project to the development and the reporting of the findings. So this is really the sort of documentation or record of the study. Okay, so the richer, the more comprehensive your audit trail, the more rigorous the study is going to be in terms of confirmability. Okay, so all your raw data should be it should be compiled somewhere. Okay, for your Viva, it's a good idea to bring your raw data to the Viva. So don't, of course, it doesn't go in the thesis. Keep it in a separate folder or whatever. Nowadays, of course, everything's online. We have everything in soft copy, right? But I was in a Viva only maybe a year ago, and the examiners requested the hard copy of the raw data in the Viva. They didn't want to see soft copy. They want to actually see the transcripts. Okay, so your raw data is one thing. If you have field notes, okay, if you have documents, that's all raw data. So make sure it's compiled somewhere as part of your audit trail. Okay, any data reduction analysis part. So whatever analysis you do. So if you have summary notes, if you have, this is why we keep a researcher's log in qualitative research. You keep an ongoing documentation of what you're doing and of your progress, and that way you are developing that audit trail. So you can trace back your steps, you can trace back what you've done. Okay, data reconstruction and synthesis products. So if whatever analysis you've done, there should be a record of it somewhere. Okay, any process notes, okay, methodological notes. Okay, and these are all the memos that you do throughout the study. All right, so keeping all these materials related to intentions and dispositions. Okay, instrument development information. Okay, so if you are using any, if you're doing an instrument development study, I guess, or if you're developing your interview guide, right? So maybe there's different drafts of your interview guide. Okay, keep all those drafts. In a qualitative study, you don't want to delete anything. Don't ever delete anything you do in qualitative research. Okay, so everything you've done, there's no mistakes. It's all part of the process, and everything leads to the next thing. Okay, so whatever, even if you've coded something and, oh my God, my coding stinks, I'm gonna go back and recode it. Don't throw out the old coding. Don't delete it, because that's part of the process. And so that's also part of your audit trail. Okay, that's also part of your audit trail. Right. So that's important for confirmability. And then also it says here, external audit is another way, and triangulation also helps with confirmability. Okay, so I have put this up on PutraBlast. I'll also share it in the WhatsApp group. I think this is a very useful tool for you to consider when it comes to identifying your own strategies for trustworthiness in your study. Okay, and I have to admit, our recent qualitative graduates have been really weak in their in trustworthiness, in demonstrating it, and it's really affected the outcome of their studies. Okay, so really pay attention to it. Don't just say you're doing it. You have to show evidence of it. Okay, so whatever you choose to do, make sure you have evidence that you're doing it. So if you say you did peer debriefing, what did you do? How did you do it? Is there any evidence or documentation of it? Okay, what was the process? As much detail as you can provide, and if you can provide examples, that's even better. Okay, any questions on that?
Prof?
Yeah.
You will be discussing the PhD thesis also, right? Or maybe next week?
The one that we were supposed to do tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah. We obviously there's no time tonight. I'll save that for next week, inshallah.
Yeah, because I have a question about the method triangulation, but I think next week should be fine. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
All right, thank you.
Okay. All right, anything else? Did I miss?
Prof, I have a question.
Yes.
You know, you mentioned the member check in advance. You know, we should every step to clarify the test, the data test transcript, and when the researcher writes the finding, the researcher also use the finding result to the informants. So you know, when I interview the informants sometimes it's very busy, and some informants it's famous artists.
Wow.
Famous director. So they cannot check with my result, check with my they cannot very easily to to check again about my my transcript and my finding. If I encounter this situation, how should I do?
Well, that's why there's a whole list there of strategies. You know, member checking in and of itself is not required. It's just one of several strategies you can use. So for example, credibility, there's seven strategies listed there. All right, so you can try to incorporate some of the other strategies if you can't do member checking.
Okay.
All right.
So yeah. So should I change some the informants if I encounter this situation? I can't reserve some the response.
No, not necessarily, because it's not, member checking is not a requirement. It is a good practice, especially for ensuring accuracy of the transcribing. It's a good practice, negotiated outcomes. But you know, there's also been critique on negotiating outcomes in terms of member checking. There's also scholars have critiqued it because some scholars say, well, I mean, not on the transcript part, but if for example, if you show your findings, if you feed back the findings to the participants, you know, your findings may be at a very sort of academic level that they can't really make sense of anyway. So people say, well, what's the point of that? So member checking has also been critiqued. So it's not the only strategy. So just because people can't do member checking, you know, doesn't mean that they can't partake in your study. There's other strategies you can use there to ensure credibility.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Anything else?
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Excuse me, Professor.
Yes, Junji.
Yeah, just now you have give some suggestion on the supervisor committee mentioned by Wei Hong, and you suggest that the main supervisor should be those who are familiar with the topic, and also the co-supervisor should be the one who is familiar with the methodology you want to conduct in your research. However, if I want to carry out a method research and the main supervisor specialize in the qualitative research, and then what kind of co-supervisor do you think it is appropriate in this kind of situation?
Well, I mean, it doesn't, I mean, it doesn't, there's nothing set in stone that says you have to, the main supervisorship, but just usually supervisory committees are formed that way, where because the main supervisor is the one you're going to be working most closely with. So they're usually the one that has the most expertise in your topic area. Okay. And then, you know, your methodological person, committee member, helps with ensuring the methodology is done properly and so forth. So that's the typical way of doing it. Doesn't mean it has to be done that way. There can be unique situations where you don't have anybody that really has that particular expertise, and you just sort of kind of are using the cumulative knowledge of the committee members to get by, right? So there's nothing set in stone. You definitely need somebody that knows your method though, whether it's the main supervisor, co-supervisor, somebody has got to have expertise in your method. If not, I don't really see how you can do your study to do it, to be that. I can't really be done that way. You need somebody with expertise in that method.
So if the mixed supervisor is not so familiar with the mixed method research, should I find some co-supervisor who specialize in the quantitative research?
No. You need somebody that's familiar. You need somebody that's familiar with mixed method research.
But if I could not find those scholars, such as experts, what should I do?
Well, there's a few things you can do. One is you can go and get a co-supervisor from outside the faculty, outside of UPM even, outside of Malaysia even. You can get a co-supervisor from wherever who has expertise in mixed methods. Number one. Number two, you can change your methodology. You don't have to do mixed methods. Or you can transfer to another university. And I say that half kiddingly, actually, because it's actually, in a lot of other countries, maybe, I don't know if it's, I don't know, I don't want to specify any countries, but in a lot of countries, when students do a PhD, they choose they choose a university and even a supervisor where they know that they can get proper supervision. In other words, they don't just choose a university to do PhD at. Oh, well, this university has education, so I'm going to do my PhD there. No, they seek out, usually it's a supervisor, an individual who they can work with because that supervisor has a similar interest that they do. Or at least a university, a faculty where they know that this faculty has expertise in what I want to learn for my PhD. So they choose the university based on that, right? And so I know we get a lot of students in UPM where students come here, they want to do something, but our faculty doesn't offer that expertise. And it's just a mismatch, right? And they go, well, what can I do? Well, since you chose UPM, you need to probably make the adjustment, because if UPM doesn't have that expertise, there's nothing UPM can do. You can go out and get the expertise from outside UPM if you want, or you can change your method.
Okay.
I know it's not a very convenient answer, and students probably don't like to hear that, but it's the truth. I mean, there's only so much we can do. This is what we offer. You chose to come here. So at that point, either you need to adjust or you need to go out and get somebody. But I have PhD students who have co-supervisors from other countries even. They have, I have an Iranian student. She has one of her committee members is from Iran because he has expertise in a particular method that she's doing. So that's perfectly acceptable. UPM accepts co-supervisors from outside UPM. It's perfectly okay.
Okay,
you are right, Prof.
Sorry, Adnan?
Yeah, you are right, because one of our colleagues now, an Omani student, he joined UPM and he selected one external supervisor from Oman as he's doing psychrometric, I think, study, because he's looking for specialized supervisor in this technique, or in this.
That is, to me, that makes a lot of sense. And that's really, to me, that's a very wise decision. And I think it just makes a lot of sense. That's why if the expertise is not here, you have to go out and get it, or you need to change. That's really the only option.
Okay, Professor. Thank you, Professor.
Okay, all right. Okay, everyone. Well, I guess it's after 9 o'clock. I've kept you in injury time. So inshallah, we'll see you all next week for the final week of the class. Have a great week. See you all again next time.
Thank you so much,
Good night,
Prof.
Professor.
Good night.
Thank you, Prof.
Good night.
Thank you, Prof.
All right.
See you.
Thanks, Prof.
Assalamualaikum.
Bye, Prof.
Bye-bye.